forces under Brigadier General Henry H. Sibley began pushing west from Texas into the New Mexico Territory. His goal was to occupy the Santa Fe Trail as far north as Colorado with the intention of opening a line of communication with California. Advancing west, Sibley initially sought to capture Fort Craig near the Rio Grande. However, Sibley pushed an advance force of between 200 and 300 Texans under Major Charles L. Pyron over the Glorieta Pass at the southern end of Sangre de Cristo Mountains. The capture of the pass would allow Sibley to advance and capture Fort Union, a key base along the Santa Fe Trail. Camping at the Apache Canyon in Glorieta Pass, Pyron's men were attacked on March 26 by 418 Union soldiers led by Major John M. Chivington. Glorieta Pass was a strategic location, situated at the southern tip of the Sangre de Cristo Mountains, southeast of Santa Fe and on the Santa Fe Trail. In March of 1862, a Confederate force of 200 to 300 Texans under the command of Major Charles L. Pyron encamped at Johnson's Ranch at one end of the pass.
On the morning of March 26, Chivington and a group of Colorado volunteers left Camp Lewis on a mission to find the location and size of the Texas force. They surprised and captured a Confederate scouting party at Glorieta Pass. A short distance away, they ran into the main body of Major Pyron's Confederates near present-day Valencia. During this battle, when it first started, the Union cavalry failed to charge the retreating Confederates as they were instructed to do so, enabling the Texans to escape and reestablish their defenses. They destroyed a log bridge to impede the Union cavalry and crossed the gap and charged into the Confederate ranks. As the night fell, both sides called a truce to care for their casualties. Pyron and his Confederates returned to Johnson's Ranch, set up defenses, and waited for reinforcements under Colonel William Scurry to arrive from Galisteo 15 miles away. Union Major John M. Chivington led more than 400 soldiers to the pass and on the morning of March 26 moved out to attack. Afternoon, Chivington's men captured some rebel advance troops and then found the main force behind them. Chivington advanced on them, but their artillery fire threw him back. He regrouped, split his force to the two sides of the pass, and caught the rebels in a crossfire and soon forced them to retire. Pyron and his men retired about a mile and a half to a narrow section of the pass and formed a defensive line before Chivington's men appeared. The Yankees flanked Pyron's men again and punished them with enfilade fire. The Confederates fled again and the Union cavalry charged, capturing the rear guard. Chivington then retired and went to camp at Kowalski's Ranch. No fighting occurred the next day, as reinforcements arrived for both sides. Lieutenant Colonel William R. Scurry's troops swelled the rebel ranks to about 1,100, while Union Colonel John P. Slow arrived with about 900 men. Both Slow and Scurry decided to attack and set up early on the 28th to do so.
Both Scurry and Slow decided to attack on March 28th and set out early to do so. Expecting the Confederates to remain in Apache Canyon, Slow sent Chivington with 2 infantry battalions under Lewis and Wynne out on a circling movement with orders to go hide out at Glorieta Pass and hit the Texans in the flank once Slow's main force had engaged their front. Chivington did as ordered, and his men waited above the pass for Slow and the enemy to arrive. But instead of remaining at Apache Canyon as Slow had expected, Scurry advanced down the canyon more rapidly than Slow had anticipated. Scurry expected the Union force more rapidly, but they were retreating to Fort Union. He intended to attack them until grain arrived. 1 cannon and a small detail was left at Johnson's Ranch. The rest of the Confederate force, with more than 1,000 men, marched eastwards along the Santa Fe Trail. When Slow found the Texans so far forward, he launched an attack, hitting the Texans around 11 a.m. and a half a mile from Pigeon's Ranch. A provisional battalion of 4 companies from the 1st Colorado, under Lieutenant Colonel Samuel Troutman, supported by both batteries, deployed across the trail. The Confederates dismounted and deployed in a line across the canyon, but the terrain caused some companies to become intermingled. Tappan was initially successful in holding his ground for a half hour, but the Confederates' numerical superiority enabled them to outflank the Union line by noon. The Federals were thrown back in confusion before taking position around the Adobe Ranch buildings. Slow reformed his men a few hundred yards closer to Pigeon's Ranch, with 4 companies under Tappan and an artillery battery on a hill to the left. the other battery supported by 2 companies in the center across the road, and 2 other companies on the ridge to the right. Scurry then launched a 3-pronged attack on the Union line. Tyrone and Rigaud were ordered to attack the Union right, Strosphere to the Union left, with the remainder of the Confederate force under himself attacking the Union center, supported by an artillery. The attack on the Union left was routed, with Strosphere killed. The attack in the center stalled, while the artillery was forced to withdraw after one canyon was disabled and a limber destroyed. The attack along the line then stalled, with the Confederates fighting by squads with a desperation unequaled by any engagement of the war. At around 3 o'clock p.m., the Confederates managed to outflank the Union right, but Rigaud was mortally wounded. From the ridge known after the battle as Sharpshooter's Ridge, the Confederates started to pick off the artillerymen and infantry below them, while Scurry started to press the Union center again. This made the Union position untenable, forcing Slough to order a retreat. Tappan organized the companies on the left flank into a rear guard. Slough then reformed his line a half a mile east of Pigeon's Ranch, where both sides skirmished until dusk. Slough retreated back to Kowalski's ranch, leaving Scurry in possession of the field.
On March 28, 1862, Union forces stopped the Confederate invasion of New Mexico Territory when they forced the rebels back at Glorieta Pass. This Union success is recognized by some as the Gettysburg of the West. Whether or not this title is well earned can be determined based on the evidence. With their supplies destroyed, the Confederates were forced to withdraw to Santa Fe. They lost 36 men to death, 70 were wounded, and 25 were captured. The Union Army lost 38, 64 were wounded, and 20 were captured. This was all on the last day, where most of the fighting took place. After a week in Santa Fe, the rebels withdrew down the Rio Grande even further. By June, the North had control over New Mexico again, and this lasted throughout the rest of the war. The Confederates did not return. This southern maneuver was part of the broader movement by the Confederates to capture New Mexico and other parts of the West. If they had succeeded, this would secure territory that the rebels thought was rightfully part of theirs, but it had been denied from them by political compromises before the Civil War. Furthermore, the cash-strapped Confederacy could use Western mines to renew their wealth and to buy more supplies, which had been depleted through battles. Volunteers from Colorado Territory marched hard and fast from Denver, arriving just in time to stop rebels from crossing the Rocky Mountains, taking Fort Union, and capturing the gold fields of Colorado before marching west to California. The gold would have allowed the Confederacy to buy much-needed supplies, and with Pacific seaports under their control, the rebels would have more ways to evade the Union blockade. So the question is, did the Battle of Glorieta Pass save the Union? What if the Confederates had crossed the mountains and marched north into Colorado? They still would have been a long ways from Fort Bliss without supplies in hostile territory. For Colorado was Union country, with few Confederate sympathizers. Transporting Rocky Mountain gold to the Confederate capital in Richmond, Virginia, would have been extremely difficult, and if necessary, the Union could have marched a force west from Fort Leavenworth, Kansas, the nearest large Union military installation, to overwhelm Sibley's Texans in Colorado. Though it could be argued that the Confederates' plans from the west were far-fetched, the Union's ability to stop them in their tracks depleted the South from supplies, and the Western Territory was secure.